I am still not doing this right. Cut all this out until I get this right.
Don't tell me what to do.
Please?
Okay. Hi, and welcome to the Inner Moxie Podcast, a podcast about not one, but two neurodivergent adults trying to live their lives on the Neuro D list and not hate themselves in the process. I'm your host, Ronnie.
And I'm Zanni.
And this week, we will be talking about alexathymia.
Mm-hmm.
I did it in one shot.
You did. How is your Moxie metered today?
Let's see. I'm feeling. I'll give it a pretty solid. I'll give it a 4 out of 5. I'm feeling pretty. Am I feeling good? All right, I'll go 3.5 out of 5. Things are going pretty well generally, but the big gig coming in, everything's going according to plan.
Mm-hmm.
But you always kind of get that anxiety, and sometimes, especially with the ADHD, I feel like if the anxiety wasn't there, I don't maybe need so much of it, but if it wasn't there, I would probably forget stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's helping me keep on track. Although, as a side point, I have been thinking about hopping on the afternoony train.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't have a separate medication, but mine I could take 2 in the morning, 2 at night if I want. Not 2 at night, 2 in the afternoon if I want to.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, by afternoon times, like I'm winding down. That's when I don't need a bunch of stuff. But when I come here, probably could use a little extra bit of that brain power, and not just because I forgot the hard drive and had to drive back and drive here again.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's about my feeling. I'm feeling a 4 with a little 0.5 damper from some anxiety, but it's all pretty good anxiety, not the worst anxiety.
Okay.
How is the Moxie meter in the land of Zanni?
I don't know. Lots overwhelm. Today was another hard one. I imagine, so I did do the things I need to do in my morning routine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can't imagine what today would have been like if I left without that.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of like unexpected things, which can't control for everything, but
right. But you can try. No.
You can try. I definitely, the thing that threw me the most, I think, is, so as I've already said on here, I had cancer 4 years ago, 3 years of follow-up with an oncologist. So this was the first one with the regular gynecologist doctor.
Okay.
And I have rescheduled it twice, and I really wanted to reschedule it when I was looking at it yesterday, but they were closed. Mm-hmm. So I didn't.
Do you mind if I ask, rescheduled it because got so busy, or it felt like something you wanted to push off?
No, this month has turned out to be a lot busier than I had anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a short week, work week, and now work, it's always got stuff, but like there just is a lot of things with like very specific timestamps and things. So
mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like I can't get an appointment, outside of the work day for this kind of stuff. Like it doesn't, urgent care, like I have to go see a specialist for this stuff anyway.
Mm.
I didn't look at who the doctor was because every time I changed the appointment, it was a different doctor because I don't have a regular one yet. And it turns out, anyway, the reason that this was like so like, which actually kind of ties into what we're going to talk about today. She was the one that I saw because she does hysteroscopies, and she's the one that had to call me and give me the news about cancer and basically no kids and all of that stuff. And it was a very odd way it's an overwhelming moment. I'm sure she doesn't love that part of her job.
No.
But like the thing that was hard about it 4 years ago was I was like, oh my, she's like, well, if you have to have cancer, this is the best kind to have. It's slow growing. You have, the earliest possible stage, great prognosis. And I was like, well, what about kids? And then her automatic answer was like, well, not for you. And I was just like, fuck, like that stung. And then she fixed it. She was like, oh, well, you could do chemo, all of that stuff, for a maybe. You have to be clear for 2 years post in order to be given the green light to have children.
Right.
So like,
I just coming from the other end, not to stump on your story. I hate the knee jerk reaction of not for you when someone asks what about kids, just in a world where so many that other options aren't, of something more along the lines of like, well, it's not going to be very traditional. Yeah. Or something like that. But they're like, oh no, not for that's so, first of all, kind of cold. And you said she caught herself and moved on it. But in a world where, and I know like part of this is, cards on the table, part of this playing out because I'm an adoptive father and I, we didn't have kids biologically for medical reasons. But yeah, it kind of just, it irks me when people are like, no. And it's like, well, maybe we at least suggest that there is a whole other world of options. Even, I don't know if IVF would have still been an option or something like that, but
not with the basically surefire cure, which was hysterectomy.
Gotcha.
And I can't even say, I understand compassion fatigue all too well, unfortunately, because I struggle with people calling out for shit. And when people feel overwhelmed by things I'm not overwhelmed by, I get annoyed.
Okay.
And not that this person was annoyed, but like textbook answer, that is the answer. And like previously the plan was like 1 and 1, adopt one, have one, it's like a
drop one, have one,
adopt a kid, have a kid.
Oh, your original plan before. Gotcha.
So, I mean, adoption was already on the table at that point anyway. But it was just so like, I don't know. You just hearing all of those things all at once is a lot.
Yeah.
So it was like weird. I didn't realize this until like an hour before. And I was like, I don't want to go to this. It was like a panic that I did not expect and cannot describe for the life of me. As far as feelings are concerned, which is how what we're going to talk about kind of ties in. Very overwhelming, very dysregulating. And I was just like, I just have to like push through everything. It'll be fine. Like this person may or may not remember this. People do tend to remember me with this specifically because I'm like 33 years younger I was than the average patient for that type of cancer uterine. Right. And it was kind of weird. I mean, I don't know. She probably didn't remember, but they do look at your chart before.
Yeah.
And she did say, oh, you've been through quite a lot since the last time I saw you, you know? And
I've had that with different doctors where I haven't been in for a while. And it's like, they clearly don't remember, but they'll look at the chart and be like, hey, last time I saw you, this, and this.
Yeah. Which I'm fine with.
Yeah. I think that's great.
I do too. That means you read before you came in here. And that's wonderful. But anyway, it was just like a lot, but like talking to her, it was fine. I was not feeling chatty because this weekend I did not use many social skills, which whatever. So they're always a little rusty the day I go back into the world, more than like, the grocery store or something. Yeah.
Well, and also too, I think, and I don't mean to speak for you, but I think, I think this is kind of pretty universally true that social skills aren't like one big bucket of like, I can be social. Social at whatever it was you were up to this weekend or social at the grocery store is different than social at the doctor office.
Yeah, true. I mean, I also had a lot to do. So I was like, God, I have to take time out of the day to like go do this. And I couldn't cancel it, last minute. I had no good reason. Anyway, I was like, this is probably just some kind of a lesson or I'm going to take it that way. And I'm just going to like see what happens. I'm not going to you know, I'm not mad at this person for saying stuff like that. Like because I understand compassion fatigue.
Yeah.
I get it. You know, it was just a lot. And I thought a lot about that time, which was not great.
Yeah. Well, and too, I was going to say, like, there are varying probably shades of bad ways to deliver that news. And that doesn't sound like the worst way.
No.
It's not a good way.
No.
You know?
No. And it was the kid part, not the cancer part. That was like, you know, it's an assumption, I would say, for most female bodied people. You assume that you will give birth to a child, you know,
right.
That is the expectation anyway. And most people align with that for a while, at least.
I would say there's a societal expectation. And I typically don't put much emphasis when people are, I think the biological thing drives maybe less than people, certainly less than certain people push it as, but to some degree, I would assume that played into.
I mean, it's like one of those just for, you know, taken for granted assumptions possibly. And that's how it was for me anyway, at that point. It was like, once I understood fully what was going on, it was relatively easy. Not a lot of grieving as far, you know, like when big stuff happens, I have a 48-hour period of just like complete dysregulation. And it's really, I can't put words to it. Almost. It's just like, I don't know. And then once I understand things, it's like, okay, well, I accept this now. Cause like, this is just how it is now. And that happens quicker than what other people say that it happens for them. I mean, I don't know. And
this is pure speculation on my part. Do you think part of it is just from knowing you? Do you think part of it is that kind of, I don't want to say it's not acceptance, but also that you start to get a plan and that you kind of have a direction to go. And then that is
possibly, yeah.
Because that seems kind of like you're a very planny person, and you seem to get comfort from that, which is
I do.
I definitely relate to that. I think we plan in different ways, but I think
planning and statistics. You know, I mean, other than I stuck to 2 websites, but I was like, I'm not just gonna like let this hang in the air. I want to find out exactly what this is from a trusted source. Not reading everyone's, you know, horror story. I don't read, you know, personal vignettes about things like that. Not right away, because, you know, one person could say one thing, you know, that happened to them, but then it's actually not representative of the group. You know, I just wanted a general idea from evidence, from data.
Yes.
And it made me feel better. It really did. But anyway, all of that stuff, I'm not here to talk about the cancer saga, which it didn't even, I mean, it was more about relationship than actual medical shit back then. So anyway, that was a lot today, stacked on top of like this last minute work thing, stacked on top of something else that happened with that work thing where I was just like, what the fuck? And then, anyway, just lots of things. Not that I can control everything, but I'm just like, you could have told me this one thing 5 hours ago. But you didn't. Okay. Anyway, and so on top of a lot of things, I don't know. When I woke up this morning, I do give myself an out of 10 score now in the morning. And so when I woke up, it was at a 7, which is not bad. I don't think I'm there anymore. I am probably maybe in like a 5.75 or a 6.
Well, we're still staying on the upper side of the scale.
Yeah. And if I didn't take a lot of time this weekend to really follow what I wanted to do, not that I threw the lists away, but I was like, sometimes I do want to do things that I have to do, like laundry or dishes or things like that. But I'm not going to make a list. Like that was all just too much this weekend, but I didn't ditch the list either.
Right.
I don't know. I just had to really prioritize and follow what I really wanted to do versus what I thought I should do, which is different.
Maybe this is totally different, but tell me if this is at least kind of parallel. So I have an app on which I plan. I have, it's like a planner app. Sends alerts to my phone or to my watch and all of that good stuff. So I have that. But I also just have another app on my phone that's just a list app. And sometimes I'm like, I'm not going to hit everything. I'm not going to hit a lot of what's on this list today. Like if it's a day that I'm like, I'm like, I know I'm not going to hit it. I'm not there today. And there's enough flexibility in my day that I can miss some of these things. And so I have the list app, which is just kind of like these. I'm moving it up to here. I've gone to simple list. It just, today I need the simple list. Is it kind of like that?
Kind of.
But not quite.
Right. It was more like, whatever I do, I will write on this list afterwards. Instead of my rapid brainstorming in the morning. I decided I do need to make a master list of things on my own to-do list. My own honey to-do list. I am my own honey. And I will do it whenever I want. But I need to make a master list of that.
I think you should get a shirt that says, I am my own honey and I will do it whenever I want. And let people try and figure it out.
You know, if they're staring at my shirt for that long to read it, I got other problems. Yeah. So
take a picture, it'll last longer.
Yeah. I also the end of last week, I received phase 1 anyway of my assessment back from Embrace, and more than 100% positive for autism.
Wow.
On that. It's not the diagnosis per se, but it was confirmation enough to where I was like, I'm not it was more of the revelation of like, okay, like I'm not making this up.
Right.
I am not forcing this into something, it is real. It was validating. I don't know.
It's not like the idea entered your head and now it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Not that.
Wait, are you going through Embrace Autism or are you going through Kaiser?
So I did talk to my psychiatrist about it, and I cannot articulate this shit in real time for the life of me, even with a plan. But they pulled what would be the purpose? The list the waiting list is so long. What treatment do you think would be helpful for you with it? And I was just like, well, of course I don't need ABA. I don't,
right.
I don't need social skills groups. I spent my whole life unhappy basically, or like torturing myself for one reason or another to fit in. Like I can already do all that stuff, and I have access to therapy anyway. I have access to, there's no medication for autism, it's confirmation and all that shit is not enough for them.
Yeah. Well, it is. I hate that question of like, well, what are you, trying to do? Like,
you should tell me.
That's also, that's not the fucking way about it of like, I don't go to the doctor and it's like, my stomach hurts. And they go, well, like, let's say it is stomach cancer. What would you want to do? And it's like, I don't know why stomach cancer came up. But of like, well, I don't know. There's no other scenario where they're like, why do you want to know?
Yeah. At least in that appointment, I told her, I was like, I'm not frustrated with you, because she looked like she was struggling having to tell me this. And I was like, I understand that this is an institutional thing. I don't agree with it. I understand that you are the conduit or like the bearer of bad news right now. And I'm not upset with you. I am just upset with this.
But I am upset with what you represent. And you're standing in this middle of this room representing it at me.
Yeah. She apologized a few times, which was nice. Because I don't know this. I didn't ask her, but it didn't seem like she necessarily agreed with it. But I'm just like, a long line doesn't, like, why can't I just say, well, I'll get in line?
Yeah.
Like, who am I, like, hire some more psychiatrists to handle it. Like, how is this how is the burden on me?
Yeah. Yeah, the whole, it's a long line, so why don't we, it's like, but I don't know. to shoot you down right there is so like, but you didn't even check anything out. you know?
Yeah, I know. I feel like another way I could do it is because I did send her the Embrace initial assessment stuff because she asked, I was like, I kind of expected this from Kaiser, so I am seeking outside diagnosis, but I do think it's a problem. Why should only the people who can pay be able to have access to that? Like, that's messed up, and that doesn't align with,
Well, not to mention, like, you're paying for Kaiser too. This, everybody who's at Kaiser is paying money for that. It's coming out of their paychecks, If not, I've had large sections of my life where large spans of my life where, as especially working independently or running my own business, I was paying out of pocket for my health insurance.
Like, this would have been a great time to have a health advocate. I can do this for other people. When it comes to my own self, I mean, I was in a gotcha situation. There is no treatment I can think of that would justify receiving that diagnosis or starting the process to get diagnosed with that. Nothing that I could think of, which that is part of like a, well, they didn't ask for this, you're not supposed to lead people into things like bigger organizational practices that are not in writing probably were in play with that.
Right.
And I was like, well, I'm in a corner now. Like, I am giving the answers that I know that you are not going to accept, and I don't have anything else, but this is still wrong.
Yeah.
I hate everything.
Well, it is such an infuriating position to be in. If nothing else, just having those types of questions thrown at you. I don't, I've never really had to, I think general checkups when I was a kid, and I've done like the over the eye thing, but I've heard that like when you get checked for glasses, there's kind of like this infuriating thing of like, oh, which one is clearer? And it becomes really hard to tell which one's clearer because you're all in your fucking head. I imagine that this is kind of that for your brain of like, I don't know. It feels like it kind of purposely, and I'm not like a big conspiracy guy, but part of me wonders if the reason they asked that question is kind of just that of like, what treatment do you want out of this? Well, if there is no treatment, then like what possible answer could you give to ever get a diagnosis,
Right.
Unless you're a child,
right? Yeah. I mean, I really don't know the right things to say about how this affects my daily life other than after that, like a day later, I was like, that whole conversation was one of the reasons why I should probably get this diagnosis from you, because I couldn't handle that by myself. I was taken by the system, even though like I was in my brain and I knew what was going on. Like, I couldn't think of any of the things that could have helped. Anyway,
right.
So that was,
well, and it's hard because it then puts you in a position. I think so many times, or here's what it very much felt like to me when I was going through it for the ASD, is they were looking for reasons that you don't have it. And not saying that's completely invaluable, but especially when you are talking about something that I think is so subjective, or at least internal, I guess is probably a better word than subjective, internal. Putting you in, if you're coming at it from trying to find the reasons that a person doesn't have it, it puts that person in an automatic defensive state. Whereas like even you were saying of like, oh, I wasn't able to say the things I should have said. Like, it should be we're able to answer those questions without thinking of them. We shouldn't have to study to go in to get the diagnosis of the thing that's ailing us. You know?
That's a good point. Another thing to say. I do think that I have another backdoor way of getting this. So I think I can, the next time I go, I also rescheduled a, like just my regular physical this week, which was a good move because it turned out to be conflicting with something else. But I could approach it with that doctor, my general.
Oh, okay.
Primary, whatever. And say, hey, and then so maybe doing a little bit more studying and being a little bit more articulate, or at least come in with like a list of reasons why this at least ails me enough to, impede my daily life, which daily life as I know it is different than a lot of other people's. I don't know. So I think that there's still a third way to go about it right now.
Yeah, I think, and I hope that works. I hope that you get the support that you need first and foremost. And I do not like cynicism. And I try to avoid being cynical best I can. I try and avoid conspiratorial thinking, but I can't see how this isn't George Bush's fault. No, I do kind of feel like at a certain point that next time I try, if I do try again, I feel like I want to try with somebody who is not in any way financially tied to what the answer is. And I feel like going through Kaiser in some way is going to be, even if, I like you said, there's no treatment. I don't know what it would happen other than a diagnosis. But if there was something, Kaiser would be on the hook for that. And so I kind of feel like next time I want to try something a little more independent from what's delivering my other care.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's why I reached out to Embrace, because that doctor is also on the spectrum. So that leads me to believe that they're not looking for ways to pad their wallet. Right. Now, that's an assumption on my part, but I feel like it's less likely in that situation than it is a different doctor. The wait list still is pretty long. So the turnaround time is, it was almost 2 months. I don't know. Time.
Yeah.
Weeks, more than month. I don't know. Yeah. But it was a while.
Although honestly, I will say this is, I know I've brought up a lot of, and this is for me, it sucks when I have to wait for things. I am not a person who likes waiting. I know so many people love waiting, but it isn't. I don't know. When it came to the ADHD and when it came to the autism assessment, when they're like, this is going to take a while, this is going to blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, yeah, that's fine. I've been dealing with it for years and years and years. What you're telling me now is that possibly in 2 months, things could be better for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take that. I was, it isn't like, oh, my pinky hurts. I don't know if I broke it or not. Should I go to urgent care now, or should I just wait 2 months to see my regular doctor?
Yeah.
Waiting 2 months in that is absurd. You need something quick. But certainly if you're having, if it is affecting your life in such a way that you're in an immediate danger, then certainly you need that quick. But where I was in my scenario, of like, I was like, and where I am now, of like, wait time is not one of the issues for me. I could do a wait time.
If you were telling me a year is the turnaround time for the first assessment, fine. At least I'll be, at least there's something there. Yeah. I've been, dealing with it forever. So anyway, so this week was just a lot with that.
Stretched you pretty thin.
Yeah. Like I didn't expect to, now that this was validated, like my suspicions for myself were validated by a doctor that doesn't know me, and just read all of my responses and assessed, like there were some questionnaires involved. And then I had to give a lot of narrative answers to, a lot of questions. And just to, you know what, there's something to this. It's looking like 100%. I mean, I scored I forget what the criteria were to move to the second phase, but it's not a big number. It was like 6 out of 4 or something like that. Just a lot. All areas. Maybe there's, I don't know.
I was going to say 6 out of 4 is 150%.
Yeah, no, it was higher than what was necessary to move on.
Look at you, valedictorian.
I mean,
autism.
I'm a valedictorian of autism. So now I'm kind of at the place where it's like, all right, the rest of the assessment is a lot more expensive. This is also very evident to me, and I feel comfortable saying that I have autism now for real. Not that I didn't before. Self-diagnosis, you can do that, but I do feel like I've been properly vetted to the degree that I think is necessary for me.
Yeah.
But do I need to be card carrying? Maybe. I don't know.
This is going to be an absolutely dumb question. Do they give cards?
No. Unless your medical record is in a card version. No, do I know who's going to look at that? Anyone I show, which could be no one. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, I don't know. That's where I go back and forth. I'm like, well, should I just complete but I mean, I don't know. I don't have to decide today.
No. Yeah.
I should not decide today because I've got 0 marbles to decide with.
Marbles is a good way of saying it.
Mm-hmm. So, that's where I am. That was a lot. So what about follow up?
I call it housekeeping.
Housekeeping.
Yeah. I got nothing this week.
I didn't listen. I ran out of time.
I know this is going to sound bad because you didn't listen. I mean, I have nothing this week because I was in the functional of cutting and editing and stuff like that. And I didn't get as deep of a listen as I usually would have.
Yeah.
Of just to throw our personal business out there. We record every Tuesday, which I think we edit, which means that it gives me until Monday when we release our new episode to edit the episode. And usually I got that done by Thursday or Friday. But this one, I believe I was Sunday. Sunday was the day when I finally got it out.
I don't remember.
I only remember because I was like, I had to post it immediately the next day, which was Monday, which was yesterday. And so that's why maybe a little behind on things.
Well, I usually listen on a Monday anyway, but yesterday was Memorial Day. And while I didn't really do anything, I did not get to that.
It happens.
I mean, I got to what I needed to do yesterday. All right. Well, then maybe we transition to our topic.
Let's do it.
And
the A word.
The A word. Alexathymia is what it is.
Alexathymia.
Yeah, I don't want to say it that way. When I read it, I want to say alexathymia, but that's wrong.
I hear it as somebody requesting thymia from Alexa.
I don't talk to Alexa or Siri. Fuck them both.
Okay.
I can't.
I'm going to have a 3-way with Alexa and Siri.
Have your fun. I will not participate for many reasons.
No, that wasn't what was going to bring you back to imaginary figures.
Nope. Definitely not. I just get so frustrated, and it's me. I have a mush mouth. Automated things have a hard time understanding me. So I just have an aversion to things that say they can hear me and inevitably mess it up because anyway, I don't mess with that stuff.
I don't fuck around with that junk.
I don't. But okay, the reason we're talking about alexathymia, not only because it's super prevalent in people in general, but especially in the autism community. But I was at the behest of our producer, Robin.
I know her.
You do. It's been in my head to watch The Sopranos. I have my reasons for not doing it until recently. But then I was like, okay, I guess I have some room in my life for something like this. And it's a topic that came up in, I don't remember what episode, but in season 3. And it really annoyed me the way they talked about it, because I identify with alexathymia a lot. And anyway, that's how I'll circle back to that, because it doesn't make sense until I describe what this is.
Indeed.
So, alexathymia, what is it, you ask? You didn't.
What is it?
Oh, thank you.
I got you back.
I have several different versions, but basically people also call it emotional blindness, but the literal translation is no words for emotions, or, to Americanize it a little bit, lack of words for emotions. It comes from the Greek. That I don't want to. Who cares? I don't want to. I don't want to get into Greek. It's just not an important time. I've wasted what?
I was going to say, this is a fun fact I learned this week. That Greek people do not like watching the sunrise.
Why?
Because dawn is tough on Greece.
Stupid. You've offended every Greek person in the world.
Or am I giving them representation?
I don't know. You'd have to ask all of them. Okay. So it's a little more complicated than having no words for emotion, but I definitely struggle with that. So let me get through these 7 things.
It's one of those, that's the gist. Now let's get into the definition.
That is the gist. Because a lot of people can identify with this, and it's, you probably do, because, just like with every diagnosis, there's many different criteria. There's assessments and things. I did take an online test for it from Embrace, and what do you want to bet that I scored on the scale for it? All of your money, you say? Oh.
All of my money right now is a negative figure, so
okay.
I'd be glad to take that or make that bet.
Okay, well, I did have it on this instrument test thing, but it's not a real test for. It's based on valid instruments, but it's not an actually validated test. But
it is an internet tool.
It is.
It's to help you.
Yeah. Okay. So, alexathymia is defined by difficulty identifying feelings. Okay.
And for a quick clarification, is that from other people, from yourself, or both? Or does it not say? It'll
get there.
Okay.
But both, depending on what you're looking at. So difficulty identifying feelings, difficulty distinguishing between feelings and bodily sensations, also called interoception, of emotional arousal. Difficulty describing feelings to other people, difficulty identifying facial expressions, difficulty identifying / remembering faces, difficulty fantasizing, and a thinking style focused on external events, or often avoiding inner experiences. So those are, you don't have to have all of them.
Right.
There is some stuff in here we'll get into later about empathy, but the thing with alexathymia and The Sopranos, the season that I was watching was 2001, 2002 there. And the psychiatrist that Tony Soprano sees, she's trying to stop having him as a patient, and is saying, well, he's telling her psychiatrist, he's alexithymic. I can't help him. Cause he's a sociopath. And I was like, whoa, what? Is this a thing for this? Because that is not the context that I read about this at all.
Right.
But basically, because of the sociopathy, he is alexithymic, which means that he cannot be helped by talk therapy, which there is a little bit of that, but not necessarily, and definitely not that extreme.
Right.
But when I heard that, I was like, whoa, I kind of want to get into this, because this doesn't feel right for the now times, 22 years later or whatever it was.
Right.
Because there is help for it, or at least recognition of it. And it's not with the narcissist who in theory, a narcissist can get help, but the narcissist would have to look at their behavior and recognize that they are wrong, and that is highly unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's not this.
Right.
So you were going to say something.
No, and I think that is, you brought up that it was the now times. And I think there's a lot to be said for that, especially in that I don't think that it was in the grand scheme of things that long ago that you did that concept of a bad seed. Have you ever seen that movie, The Bad Seed?
Saw Bad Omen. No, The Bad Son, Bad Boy. Actually,
The Bad Son, I think, the Macaulay Culkin one, that I think was kind of like a spiritual remake of Bad Seed.
Okay.
But The Bad Seed was the little girl who, but even like if we go back to over there, Mike Myers, like if I'm not going to be able to quote this directly.
What are you talking about?
But when was it the Mike Myers? I'm sorry, Halloween's not my one of my ones I know deeply about. The doctor.
Mm-hmm.
I keep thinking not Dr. Loomis.
Yes.
Okay. Because I'm thinking Billy Loomis from Scream, but I think Billy Loomis is named after Dr. Loomis.
Probably.
Which makes sense for Scream. But Dr. Loomis, when he was first talking about, Mike Myers, and he's like, I looked into that 6-year-old's eyes and I saw nothing there. And it was this black, it's into nothing, no conscious, no. So, and that's just not something we really, A, attribute to children anymore, but B, attribute to people in general. I think that as time has gone by, that idea of a bad seed, of somebody that was just born inextricably bad or uncaring or without any empathy at all, is kind of fading away. We either look at it as something that's incredibly rare or something that is the result of maybe being born with something and then natural things combining to be to put people in those very outskirts mental capacities. But yeah, to immediately write it off as this is just the way he is and there's nothing we can do about it, I think is a concept that is fading away rightfully with time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And I'm glad for it because okay, sorry, my brain is farting all over the place. Let's look at.
I was going to say, and just for the record, that's not a defense of all the things that Tony Soprano did. I'm not pro organized crime.
Right. I'm not either, but I do accept that it is there and probably always will be. Anyway. Okay. So then general Wikipedia, because this was from Embrace Autism, this other thing, pulled together some stuff. Significant challenges in recognizing, expressing, sourcing, and describing one's emotions. It is associated with difficulties in attachment and interpersonal relations, which I thought was interesting. Highly prevalent among individuals with autism. But I mean, it's actually, this thing is very prevalent in the general population, it has the same prevalence essentially as left-handed people, which it's not most people, but it's a lot more than 1%. It's like 10%.
Yeah. I think 1 in 9 for 1 in 8, 1 in 9 for left-handed people.
I don't know. It's 1 in 10 for this. If you can even know that. And then in autism, like different studies, anywhere between 50 and 80% of people on the spectrum are positive for this as well. And even in I forget her name, but the Embrace Autism doctor person, she is like, we really should kind of reform the actual autism diagnosis because alexathymia, which highly co-occurs, some of that stuff shouldn't actually be on the diagnostic criteria, basically. I didn't have a lot of time again this week. It's
been a week.
It's been hard. All right. So causes, people want to know where things come from. There's 3 basic kinds: genetics and family relations. That's primary alexathymia. Secondary, psychological distress would be the cause, and then organic would be brain damage.
Okay.
So
just imagine fucking hippies. It's like, no, I have organic alexathymia. Did I say it right?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did.
Good job.
There you go.
Yeah, I got the organic alexathymia. Oh,
yeah, not your genetically modified alexathymia.
That's the kind I have. I didn't highlight a lot of this stuff, so let's keep going. Oh, that's some of the other stuff. Anyway, I guess I am so disjointed. I apologize. This is how it goes for me.
Well, I was gonna say one thing about it that seems kind of it's a little weird to veer off into this because I don't have any specialized knowledge about it, and I know that it is an area of that we should tread lightly. So I will start off by trying to tread lightly, but it sounds like, and you kind of had mentioned it before in the episode, but it sounds like a lot of these things are what do you call parts of a disease? Symptoms. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these things are similar symptoms to what we have classically understood. And I mean, I don't know where the line is on a medical level and a social level on this understanding, but about things like psychopathy or sociopathy, or I believe now it just would fall under antisocial personality disorder. Mm-hmm. But it seems like those seem to fit that kind of, if not medical explanation, that kind of cultural zeitgeist understanding of what those things are.
What is the zeitgeist?
Just kind of like how we all understand it to be without cracking open a book.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, probably. I mean, there is overlap, but I mean, with 1 in 10 people, mm-hmm. let's say that it's just, rolled the dice and here we go.
Right.
It does co-occur with a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And not just antisocial personality disorder or whatever, anxiety, depression, symptoms of it. I mean, for me, I definitely have a lot of them. Mm-hmm. I can just read some signs and symptoms if that's a little bit easier. These are probably more lay version. Yeah. Well,
and for the record, none of this was to say that maybe you have sociopathy or psychopathy or antisocial.
And the hallmarks of like, I don't, oh my God, like sociopathy or antisocial personality disorder is a lack of empathy, which I do not lack at all. Mm-hmm. But that's a big thing. Right. I struggle with it sometimes, but not a lot. Mm-hmm. Or not in a way that would qualify for this, which this is actually not even like considered like a trait or a diagnosis either. Mm-hmm. Okay, so some signs and typical deficiencies may include problems identifying, processing, describing, and working with one's own feelings, often marked by a lack of understanding of the feelings of others, difficulty distinguishing between feelings and the bodily sensations of emotional arousal, a confusion of physical sensations often associated with emotions, few dreams or fantasies due to restricted imagination, and concrete, realistic, logical thinking, often to the exclusion of emotional responses to problems. That was a lot of blah, 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 but I will say, with the exception of fewer dreams or fantasies, which that maybe have more to do with the recall of the said things versus actually having them. And but the other thing, so like lots and lots of, I have a lot of confusion when it comes to emotions happening in real time. Like earlier today, when I realized all of that stuff and I was sitting in the waiting room, I couldn't tell you how I felt in those moments. All I know is I really wanted to get out of there and not do it. And I was just telling myself I needed to sit there and do it. It was probably going to be fine. They probably won't remember you. Right. It's not going to be a confrontation of sorts. And I knew that it was really not even having to do with her, the doctor. It, you know, that was an uncomfortable time. I didn't like all of the feelings that I had back then, but it was just so confusing. I even last Friday, I found a little notebook at work and opened up and I read it, and this was from 2018. And
you found a notebook of yours at
yes,
work.
Of mine. A little, literally little. And I think I intended to bring it in there to write some stuff. I don't know. Obviously,
you love a good notebook.
I do,
but just have the options around.
Yeah,
it's no problem.
Right, but
you're safe here.
Thank you. But I mean, I opened it up, and the last thing that I wrote in it was something from 2018 when I was married, and I wrote how confused I was. And I wrote down the things that happened and that I felt confused about them, and I didn't understand what I did wrong or what the situation was about. It was just like, God, like it took me back there a little bit. Experiencing the emotions doesn't make it easier to explain them verbally or even like as they're happening. It takes me a long time to process things, as this thing kind of said. I still can't tell, like, it's not comfortable. I would not say with the classic definitions of emotions, like, okay, I wasn't sad. I wasn't, hold on, where are emotions in here? There's like 6.
Are you looking through your heart?
Yeah.
Where are emotions?
I was like, well, what are emotions? Literally, I Googled it because I didn't know. So, okay. Well, I mean, I guess if you watched Inside Out, you would know too. Happiness, sadness, fear, disgust, anger, surprise. Those are like the core ones, I guess, according to someone. And I wouldn't say that it was any of them, but it's hard to know. I wasn't happy.
There are some times when it's just like, I don't know what I'm feeling right now. I don't like it though, and I don't want it anymore.
Yeah. And that feels alexithymic, which isn't negative.
No.
It's an explanation.
Sometimes it is the hardest part of therapy for me. I will be like, I did this action. And it's like, what were you thinking when you did that action? And I was like, I don't know. It was like this, but also like this. But like, I can never give like a simple, like, oh, it was a combination of these two feelings. It was like, I don't know. It was kind of, I wasn't sad, but I wasn't happy. I felt depressed, but not the sad kind of depressed, but like the couldn't move type of depressed. And then like very responsibly, my therapist would follow up with follow-up questions to, so not only she can understand, but so I can understand. And it'd be like, I don't know. I don't know. And sometimes I'm not trying to normalize what you're saying you're feeling, but sometimes it is that thing out there of like, I don't know what this feeling is, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. You'd think it would happen the other way around too, of like, I don't know what this feeling is, but I like it.
That's why I feel like my continuum is like irritation to excitement. And in between, like, that's the range. Those are, I think, but neither of those things are primary emotions according to this shit.
Irritation isn't on there?
No. It's happiness, sadness, fear, disgust, anger, surprise. And then secondary emotions.
Those are actually the people inside Out.
Probably named after whoever wrote this.
Probably. I guess Pixar does some research.
Right? You would think. I mean, if you're if your audience is children, you better not lie to them about emotions.
Although I think we're far enough now. We can admit Pixar's audience is also a good portion adults.
Are they? Yeah, probably. I mean, they have to, because the parents, a 3-year-old isn't capable of watching something for an hour and a half by themselves the whole time. At least maybe there are
My
some.
10-year-old isn't capable of doing that.
Right. But I think there might be a few outliers. But I think, there's lots of interruptions. So it's best practice if a parent has visual access to that kid so they can see, and the kid can see them too. Be like, Mom, I need a whatever. Dad, I need this. That's how 3-year-olds are in my head. You just need stuff all the time.
Not far.
Right. But okay, so those are like the primary emotions, which, okay, I can say I've been fearful of things. And they do describe things. So like, okay, fear can increase the heart rate, cause racing thoughts, or trigger the fight or flight response. It can be a reaction to actual or perceived threats. Some people enjoy the adrenaline rush, which I do, that accompanies fear in the form of watching scary movies, riding roller coasters, and skydiving. I like all three.
But never at the same time.
You can never say never.
That's true.
So those are the primary ones, and they say that humans experience them universally. And then secondary emotions stem from and are variations of primary emotions. And sometimes we have secondary emotions in response to our primary emotions. I am frustrated that I am so sad. Secondary emotions may also... Hold on, there's something that said this plus this equals this. It must not have been on here. I looked at a lot of things and got overwhelmed. Because that's comfortable for me. But anyway, all of those things... And feelings are different than emotions, apparently.
Oh, okay.
Maybe that, and I didn't print that. So.
I did not know that.
I didn't either.
Did you happen to remember what the difference between an emotion and a feeling was?
Please, no. Emotions are reactions to stimuli, but feelings are what we experience as a result of emotions.
Okay. That kind of makes sense to me.
I don't have the brain power to understand it right now. After today, when too many things happen at once, I usually close down the shop when days like this happen. And I used to say, I'm all done with today. And when I was married, I was told, well, today's not done with you. And to me, that just didn't feel right.
I was going to say, today don't get a fucking vote in it.
Yeah. I think the point was like, I don't know. I understood the point from a program point of view, but also it felt dismissive, and that was just one of the many reasons why I never wanted to be vulnerable in that. Anyway,
yeah, I get you. Yeah. Also, because when you say fucking I'm done with today, and then someone says, well, today's not done with you. That's just so disregarding of and it is the most it is such like it's certainly not, but it gives like a weird sexual assault aftertaste in the background, in like the back of my throat. Like, today's not done with you. And it's like, let's calm it down a bit.
Huh. That doesn't cause that for me at all. It just felt very
Which is probably good, especially since someone actually said it to you.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the idea is, at that time I was more open to the idea that people were either like, okay, so people in 12-step programs for substance abuse, at least, because that was my experience living with someone who was doing all that.
I don't mean this to be a jackassy question. Is there 12-step programs for things outside of substance abuse? Mm-hmm. Ooh, like what?
Well, substance abuse is... So, like, there's OA, Overeaters Anonymous. Al-Anon is for the friends and family of people.
Okay. But
that is a different way of thinking. But if you're there for recovery for yourself from overindulgence and whatever... AA is the easiest.
Gotcha.
It's the most heard about.
Yeah.
You don't get to make the rules. Your ego's too big. Therefore, a response like today's not done with you, which I think that is literal rhetoric from the program. If not, I'm misremembering, but it's something like that.
It gives that vibe.
Right. It's a valid response to a person saying something from an ego place, which is not where I was coming from at all.
No. And that makes total sense. Well, and also, I guess it's just, I don't know. It feels like somebody was, like, it's one thing to take on these kind of mantras. It's another thing entirely to have them heaped on you. And that's the thing I think is a little, that rubs me the wrong way. I don't even want to go so far as to call it gross.
Yeah. Well, I mean, dismissive is dismissive. And that was kind of the point. Like, you know, well, you can't give up. And it's like, well, what I'm actually saying is I feel very overwhelmed and I can't take any more today. Yeah. Like, I feel like I've hit my maximum. But then that kind of a comment also is just like, well, doesn't matter. You might still have to deal with some more shit, which might be true anyway. But like, the underlying thing is kind of like, well, I don't care if you've hit your max or not. Yeah. Like the point is being missed. I don't know, but I was used to that, you know, unfortunately. Yeah. So emotions are reactions to stimuli, but feelings are what we experience as a result of emotions. An emotion is normally quite short-lived but intense. Emotions are also likely to have a definite and identifiable cause. Feelings are influenced by our perception of the situation, which is why the same emotion can trigger different feelings amongst people experiencing it. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah. Feelings are difficult as well. And I feel like culturally in the United States, we say things like, I feel like this. When maybe we're not even talking about a feeling at all. It's just a way of talking. Does that make sense? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but explain it to the audience. Just no.
No. So that means no. Like, instead of saying, I think this when giving an opinion, you know, like, well, I feel like we should do blah, 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 blah. Like, we should all eat candy for breakfast or, you know. But saying that we feel it doesn't have the same feel as committing to the statement, or it's like you know, it's not 100. Maybe there's room for error or room for variability or something.
Also, I think, and I think both of those are true. But I'll add on to it, room for collaboration on that particular thought. Like, you know what, if after this, it was like, you know what, let's go get dessert. Let's go hang out and get dessert. And I was like, oh, I think we should go for ice cream. Versus like, we should go for ice cream. Or I feel like we should go for ice cream.
Or I feel like ice cream.
Yeah, or I feel like ice cream. I'm very cold and melty.
I mean, that's how I feel all the time.
You do seem like a melty person. I don't even know what that would mean.
That's all the emotions I can't describe. Or I guess feelings. God, this is so fucking confusing.
Well, those are technical definitions maybe, but like, we can use the, you know, we can use the words in the parlance of our times, you know, of what the point of words is so that the person you're talking to knows what you mean. Oh, yeah. So in that sense, even if they don't mix up exactly to those definitions, if I came to you and said, hey, you know what, I'm feeling really tired. Or if I came to you and said, you know what, I'm just emotionally drained. Even though there might be technical differences between those, you would understand of like, oh, Ronnie may need a little break, or maybe I should ask Ronnie what he needs, or, you know, this or that.
Right. I'm only laughing because...
Laugh away.
So I've read this article more than one time, but I did not read it thoroughly before again today. But I remember this does have something to do with, okay, if someone falls down in front of me, I laugh. And it's not because I think that, it's funny when people get hurt.
Mm-hmm. Not building a great case for yourself right now.
I know. I'm also delirious.
No, it's okay.
I did take an afternoon and still, I just feel, it feels really watery in here and fluid in all the wrong ways right now.
Right. Not fluid in the like, oh man, it's infinitely malleable. It's like it's fluid like in that it's going through my fucking fingers anytime I grab something.
And it's muddy.
Yeah.
And you can't see through it.
And it probably tastes weird.
Yeah. It probably does. I'm really struggling with focus. If you couldn't tell, welcome to ADHD life. Not related. I kind of am wondering if I should switch to MPHs like you instead of Adderall. I'm going to ask my psychiatrist.
Oh, methylphenidine?
Yes.
I've never heard it called MPH before.
I hadn't either, but
it's so much easier than methylphenidine.
Yes. And the reason is irritability has always been a thing for me. And it just hasn't gone away. And in fact, I feel like it's gotten worse, but it's hard to tell whether it's like medication or life circumstances lately. But actually the amphetamine class, like there is some correlation between irritability, but it's not as high as everyone thought it was. It could affect your mood in that kind of a way, but I'm just like, since my natural state is pretty irritable and then this isn't saying it's going to help that. And if I'm noticing it a lot more, I wonder what the difference would be if I moved to a different class. I don't know. I'm going to talk to the doctor about it.
Yeah, that's probably a good choice. I know I wanted to move on to the one starts with a V.
Vyvanse?
Yes, Vyvanse. Because I heard that it helps with compulsive eating, which is something I do. I've made I don't think I've made any secret on the show of I have a not great relationship with food that I've worked on for a number of years. And so I was like, oh, that might be helpful. And I remember I talked to my psychiatrist about it, and he's kind of the opinion, which I got, and he's like, honestly, you're doing really good on Ritalin right now. Vyvanse kind of has that side effect. It's been reported, but it's mostly known for kind of its release schedule, which is really good for kids, which is why it's mostly prescribed to kids. So, I mean, I'm not saying no, but and I was like, no, I mean, like, there are some times where I legit just is like, hey, I heard about this thing. You tell me what you think about it as somebody who reads papers. And by the way, he was completely right. I heard about it from like a friend's kid was on it. And so, but yeah, I think that's the third one. So the Vyvanse, Adderall, and Ritalin.
There's a lot more. There was another one that I was looking at. I cannot remember the name of it to save my life right now. But I think it starts with a D.
Oh, probably. I just thought my daughter has ADHD, and she is on one that's not one of those three. And I just forget the name of it right now.
Concerta? Kids,
I'm not going to remember.
They don't usually get... I mean, I guess in the 90s, Ritalin was just handed out to all kids that were diagnosed. It sounds like. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I remember... this is all so subjective. Obviously, I was on Ritalin, so that might have contributed to it. But I don't remember hearing the name Adderall come around till much later.
Yeah, and it was around, but I think the frontline defense was Ritalin.
Yeah,
for a long time. But yeah, I don't know why I needed to talk about that right now. But I threw all the papers and decided to say it. But yeah, no, the MPHs are not associated with irritability at all, which is why I was like, you know what? Maybe this is worth asking about. Because I mean, it's almost June. So like 9.5 months of Adderall, which there's been so many benefits. But now that it's been a good long time, I'm like, if something could be done about the irritability,
Right.
like it's my natural state. Is it enhancing it? Is it not? I don't know, but maybe just like eliminating that as a possibility could be helpful for me.
Yeah. Well, and obviously talk to your doctor about it. But
Yes.
I'm also of the, a lot of things I would say that specifically drive my irritability is every time I get irritable, it seems to be related to the ADHD thing. It seems to be because attention's being pulled, like I think talked about a couple of weeks ago on here, like when I get into the kitchen and I'm starting to cook, and then that's when my kids will pop in and be like, hey, da 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 da. And I get very irritated, even though like I am waiting all day for my kids to talk to me. But yeah, so if irritability is a side effect of ADHD, then there's, it's perfectly natural to want a medicine that will help you with it.
Yeah. Or at least not enhance.
Right. Do you think it's enhanced, or do you think
It feels like
just
it.
not taken away in it?
I don't know. I don't think that it's supposed to take it away. I just think it could negatively impact potentially irritability. But like, I don't know. I haven't looked at it that closely, but I get irritated by a lot of stuff. And I feel like my natural state is kind of on the irritated side. I don't know. And I don't know. And maybe because today I feel irritated on the, almost to the max because of all the things that have happened already. It's possible. I mean, this is not just I was researching this stuff over the weekend because I'm noticing it more now, or maybe things have cleared up. I don't know. I was also giving myself a very hard time about, like, oh, you get to have time and the freedom to do whatever you want all the time. But I'm like, why do I even feel bad about this? If I could get myself to a state that is neutral or balanced, maybe I wouldn't have these cycles where I have a lot of productivity and then I can do nothing. And, and maybe it doesn't have to go like that. Like, I don't know. That's just kind of what I was thinking about this weekend.
It's a unique thing about you that I'm sure probably other people have, but I don't know of any. It's unique. I'm not going to put any judgment, good or bad, on it. I don't think I know anybody else who would say I am irritated to the max, but then still place their general well-being on still the positive side of things. Like, being irritated to me is terrible. And if I'm a little irritated, then I'm down to like a 2.
Oh.
And so I don't know. I don't have anything else to add to that other than that's a unique thing I noticed when you're talking right now and said you're irritated to the max.
Oh, pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I know what you're talking about actually, but I also feel like for myself, I have like it. I don't know, like life is still exciting, and maybe because my baseline for irritation is just much higher than yours. It sounds like probably. If I don't know, I've spent a lot of time trying not to focus on the things that really bother me. And a lot of that came from the external world. That, if I just talk about those things, no one is going to talk about those things with me. Being a miser or whatever is not something that makes people like you. So lots of conditioning over the over the decades to not hyper focus on those things and just, I have a lot of self-awareness and observing myself as I interact with other people, like the more negative stuff I talk about, I'm not pulling the kind of people towards me that I want to hear. I don't want to hear other people complain. Mm-hmm. I don't know. This is going nowhere. Thank you for I'm going to say compliment.
Sure.
Because it is a juxtaposition. I don't notice anything like this around. I've never noticed anything like that with, other people either, but I haven't focused on this at all.
Right. Well, and two, like it's not something that would get brought up in general conversation.
True. I don't know. I also see the humor in my irritation, as I've already said on this podcast. So it can be funny and ridiculous. Yeah. Anyway. And
we learned that you can have two emotions or feelings at the same time.
Yeah, you can. Mm-hmm. I learned, therapy school might have really helped with all of that. Understanding that, people aren't composed of black and white components, right? Like you're not this or this, there's lots of intersection, and I live in the gray areas of life, as most people do, but not everyone recognizes. So
yeah.
You can hold many things at once. I think I'm all done flipping through papers, but there was one more thing. The associated conditions, I did highlight a few of them because I did want to... Okay, so most associated now with autism, but also associated with clinical depression or anxiety, ADHD, PTSD, anorexia, bulimia, social phobia, substance abuse disorders, brain injuries, which we've already talked about, personality disorders, and physical illness can all be comorbid. And again, it's not like, you're alexithymic and that is part of who you are for the rest of your life.
Right.
Also, things can be heightened. So people who have had certain types of traumas, it can kind of put you into a different world. With PTSD, there might not be a lot of mental space to consider other people for a while.
Well, I was going to say, do you think, me having done no research on it whatsoever, do you think part of it may be kind of a defense system for the brain?
Yes, because she wrote about that a little bit in this one.
Ah. And this is Dr. Person we're talking about.
DrEmbraceAutism.com. Where is it? Defense mechanism. Let's just read it. Okay, so I think in her initial post, she said, in their initial post, they argued how alexithymia is likely a protection mechanism, not just a nuisance. Okay, yeah. So when things are too hard, it can kind of like relieve the tension and make it so that you're less burdened by your emotions.
Yeah.
And research has backed that up as well, is what she says in this. Here's the funny vignette I was looking for too. When she was 27 or so, she was walking to the grocery store, there in Canada, a few meters away from a woman in her early 30s. The woman in her 30s fell off her bike, and Dr. Lady chuckled as she continued walking. And to her surprise, a man and a woman who had no connection with each other came running up to help her get back on her bike. And she thought that was a bit dramatic, like you might see in the movies. And she thought to herself, if it was a guy falling, would you likely have come to the rescue? And the reason she could laugh out loud about what happened is because she saw that the lady was fine anyway. And if it had been serious, she may not have responded that way, which I thought was funny. And also exactly how I would react. Mm-hmm. I probably wouldn't think the thing about a guy. I would just be like, leave her alone. She probably is just embarrassed. I wouldn't want that kind of attention, reacting. And people do this all the time. So this is not different than that. But like, I would think it was funny. But I think most people would not laugh out loud. They would just ignore it or ask if the person was okay.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like, YouTube now, but when we were kids, America's Funniest Home Videos.
Yeah.
People laugh when people get hurt.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But when it happens in front of your face, most people don't because of whatever it is. But like, I think people project their own shit onto how you're having your reactions or whatever's happening to you. I'm no different than that. I think it's natural for most people to do that because it's comfortable. Like, it's hard to differentiate for people with alexathymia. There, I think I said it wrong. Whatever. It's a hard one to say when it's written like that. I lost my thought. Well,
here it is.
Why did you kidnap it and hold it over there?
It was running away and I caught it.
Oh, thanks. Don't touch my thoughts. Just kidding.
Leave my thoughts alone.
Leave them alone. Like projection is like a thing. So I wouldn't have tried to help that person because I would assume that person was fine.
Yeah, more embarrassed than anything else, and giving them help would have made them more embarrassed.
Yeah, but then other people who may not have had decent experiences falling off of stuff and getting up again would probably want to go help them or make sure they're okay. Or maybe I don't really struggle with empathy in the sense that like it's especially highlighted with like animals. I don't want anyone to suffer, but especially like watching like an animal get hurt, it's harder. I don't know about people in real time, but like on movies and stuff, I don't care.
Well, yeah.
But I can definitely, I feel like I can feel what other people are feeling for the most part, or at least what's happening to them in that moment. I can feel something. It's not like, this thing has no feelings at all. Like a sociopath, as they say, or antisocial person, they can't understand that other people are having pain. And I can, that's not the case here.
Yeah.
For me, this is not, I give up because I cannot string things together any longer. You know what?
My friend, today is done with you.
Thank you. Bye.
Let's roll. Well, we got a few other things we got to roll through before that.
All right. Well, if you enjoyed any of this, please like, rate, subscribe wherever you are tuning in. Leave a comment or a review, I guess is the right way to say that. If you would like to follow us on social media, you can do so on Instagram and TikTok at InnerMoxiePod. You can email us at myinnermoxiepod@gmail.com. You can find us on Patreon if you want to support us. That would be great.
It'd be fantastic.
Yeah, throw some money our way. If you would like to follow me, you can do that on Instagram at Zannism, ZANNISM. I am a religion and disease, period.
Yes, if you want more of me, you can always check out my other podcast, the Band Media Podcast. Also, I'm on most of all the socials, but most active over on TikTok at Band Ronnie.
Yep. Until next time,
we're so close. We're right there. You can do it.
Stay fresh. Cheese bags. Goodbye.
Later.